Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel. This is my books beside my bed video where I wrap up the last 7 days worth of reading, and it covers the week period from the 26th of February until the 3rd of March. I have started my March TBR, so if you've seen my March reset video, which I'll leave linked on the screen, you will see that a couple of books have popped up already. I also read a couple of extra books for that project that's happening and going to be released hopefully middle of March. So there are a few books I'm not going to talk about in this video that I did read as extra books, but you'll hear about them soon, I promise. Two books that I did read that I'm not going to talk about in this video though are Heartless by Elsie, which I did a dedicated reading vlog for, also linked on the screen. Absolutely loved it. Small town contemporary romance, single dad. Really fun. And I also did a reread of Maniac by Onley James because Robin from Paperbacks and Planners and I are going to be talking about this in a live show next weekend on the 10th of March. So if you would like to come and join us and chat about Maniac and the Necessary Evil series, we would love to have you join us. Since this was a reread for me because I got my physical copy and I wanted to do all the tabs, I will leave a link to my first review of it over here as well. It was in another books beside my bed video. Okay, moving into the books that I am going to talk about today. The first one that I read, I was so excited because I got an e-arc of this. It was Possession by Ilona Andrews, or A. Andrews. This is the second book in her Camp Haven series, which was originally titled the Kink Camp series. I had the best time reading this book. This world is just so fun. So if those of you who aren't familiar with the series, the first book is Hunted, this one is Possession. It is a very, very steamy contemporary romance set at a kink camp, and all of the characters there are just absolutely delightful and fun, and you get to know so much more about them and their preferences, and it was such a good time. So we are following Zed, who is very well known and very well loved at Camp Haven, but he's also in his real life a Hollywood heartthrob. And at the start of this book, he is caught up in a cheating scandal. He's just recently married his co-star Twyla, and he is caught sleeping with another woman. And as it turns out, their marriage is a marriage of convenience only, but the blowback from the publicity of this is not great. And he escapes back to Camp Haven, and Twyla, who is just the most delightful plus size heroine, who is not what she appears to be in terms of how Zed has perceived her, follows him. And she is determined to prove, not just to him, but to herself and to everyone else, that all of these things that she has thought about, all of these preferences she's had over the years do not make her strange, and that she belongs at Camp Haven as well, even if Zed doesn't want her anymore, because that's what she believes. The whole thing was just super steamy and super fun, and I love seeing all these characters come back together and how they embraced and included Twyla, and how Zed had to get over himself and prove that he was worthy of Twyla in the end, and it was so great. Ilona Andrews does have amazing content warnings on her website, as well as a list of tropes, but just some of the big ones to be aware of. This one does feature CNC, or consensual non-consent. There is some kidnapping kink in here. There is forced sex kink, objectification, and also multiple partners. The hero is a pansexual dom, and he is delightful, even though he needs to get over himself a little bit. And there is a bit of a discussion in here around dyslexia, because Zed is also dyslexic, and there's talk about how he manages that in his career. I love this. I loved Zed and Twyla and everyone, and it was just so good to be back in there. I also read the bonus epilogue novella, which is super steamy. It's called Where We Belong, and it does feature a multiple partner scene, which if you read the full length novel, you'll understand why this scene happens afterwards. Just so good. Then I picked up Nightlights by Sarah Epstein. This is an Australian young adult story. It is a bit of a sci-fi thriller story, but it is set on Earth, and it is about Owen, whose family is going on this holiday, staying in a isolated cabin in the woods during the school holidays. He has a younger sister. He's with his parents and his uncle. And once they arrive at this cabin, things start to go wrong. His sister gets very sick. His mother and his uncle disappear, and his father is behaving very, very erratically. And to top it all off, at nighttime, they all see these strange lights in the sky, and this town that they're staying in is well known for having UFO sightings. We jump around in a dual timeline in past and present as we try and figure out what is going on, why people have disappeared, why people were getting sick, what the lights are, and how do all of the townspeople feature into this. It was delightful and a little bit creepy and a little bit spooky, and I just thoroughly enjoyed reading this. Sarah Epstein is one of the queens of Australian young adult thrillers, and I love this so much. Continuing the young adult theme, and clearly I'm picking up some YA adult titles here after not having done that in a very long time, I finally read Vespertine by Margaret Rogerson, and I know that this was not a favourite of people compared to something like Sorcery of Thorns, which I absolutely loved, but I really enjoyed this one. This is about Artemisia, gonna stumble over that name. She's training to be a Grey Sister, who are an order of nuns who basically cleanse the bodies of the deceased so that their souls can pass on and so that their spirits don't come back vengeful, because in this world ghosts exist and they have the power to possess people and to then go on and do truly horrific things. When Artemisia's convent is attacked by possessed soldiers, she ends up being possessed by a spirit that sort of belonged to one of the saints of their world. And this spirit is very, very powerful, very, very angry at having been trapped for so long. And yet Artemisia is able to control that spirit and to work with it and to still maintain her sense of self, which makes her a Vespertine in this world, basically a saint who is able to control spirits. And they have to set out figuring out who is setting all of these spirits loose in the world, who is causing all of this chaos. And it was just fun. Did I love it more than Sorcery of Thorns? No, but I did have a really good time reading it because I love ghost stories like this, and yeah, it was just a fun, easy read this week. I also reread One Fell Swoop by Ilona Andrews. This is the third book in the Innkeeper Chronicles series. It is the book that we are going to be talking about in our live show later this month, probably on the 24th of March. It was just so good to come back to this book because literally the only thing I remembered about this book was that Maud, who is Dina's sister, comes back, and that we also get to meet Helen, who is Dina's niece. Everything else I'd totally forgotten about. The major plot point, totally forgotten about. It's such a gorgeous series. So if you're not familiar, and I mean, I've been talking about this series for months now. Dina is an innkeeper. She is the innkeeper of the Gertrude Hunt, which is a sentient inn that is a way station on Earth for intergalactic travelers. This is a series with space vampires and werewolves, and you have Dina, who in this book is finally really exploring her relationship with Sean. Sean in this book is dealing with returning to civilian life after being involved in a war for a significant period of time. Dina receives a message that her sister needs help and needs to be picked up off this planet that is controlled by vampires, and so she calls in a favour from Arland, who is the vampire who we've met through the various books. And so together Arland, Sean and Dina set off to go and pick up Maud, and Arland becomes besotted with Maud. Maud is just, I love her so much. And when they come back, they are greeted by an alien race that is being hunted to extinction. And they request that Dina helps them to try and find their final home. And to do that would put the inn at great risk, but Dina is taken by their story and she doesn't like bullies. And so when the race that's hunting them comes to her doorstep, she allows the other aliens to stay at her inn and agrees to help them. And basically the Gertrude Hunt is under siege for the period of this book. It is just a really great story. We get to see the development of these relationships. The next book in the series is Maud's series, and I really can't wait. It's going to be so much fun. This is just pure comfort, cozy fantasy sci-fi reading, and I loved it. And the last book that I read this week is an Australian middle grade title. It is called What Snail Knows by Kathryn Apel. This book has been listed as a notable for the Children's Book Council Awards of Australia this year. It is a middle grade verse novel and it is absolutely gorgeous. This is about Lucy, who lives with her single dad, and they move around a lot. And we know that they don't have very much. They're very low on the socioeconomic scale. And at the start of this book, Lucy has just settled into second grade at a new school. She's finally made a friend and her teacher is wonderful, and the class is doing this project on learning about helping in the community. It's kind of an inquiry project where they actually have to get involved and do things to help other people. For the first time, Lucy feels like she belongs somewhere, but she's really worried that her dad is going to pick them up and move around again. They're living in a caravan park, and this story is about Lucy wanting to find a place where she belongs and some permanence in her life, and her worry about her dad and the fact that they're so isolated, and we learn a little bit about why they're isolated, but also how they begin to accept the help of others and how they build their own little community who wants to support them, who are there for them. And it was just so, so lovely. I believe Kathryn Apel is a teacher, and she talked about how she had a student like Lucy, and I think all teachers have had students like Lucy in the past, so it's very, very close to home. And it was just absolutely beautiful. So those are the books that I read this week. In the comments, I would love to know if you have read any of these books or if you're planning on picking them up. Alternatively, feel free to share something that you have been reading and loving. If you want to let me know that you're here but you don't want to leave a comment, feel free to leave an alien or a spaceship emoji down below. the Nightlights, because that was such a fun read. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everyone.